Hey everyone, quite a few people have been asking me recently with all that's going on, could I do an overview of where we are at in this very fast moving period of intense energy. I'm not going to cover a lot of the astrology that I think I've kind of done to death recently, but I will put those links below of the video I did on the big picture and anything else that feels relevant. I covered a lot of the imminent astrology in my conversation with Anne Tucker recently, but I will put those links below. So I'm not going to go over a lot of the detail of that. I am going to broadly talk about some of the things I've talked about before, but I'm going to add in new ingredients and I think see it through a new lens. So I hope this isn't going to be a bit of a ramble or a pamble, as they're becoming known. I hope this is going to be helpful to you, but I'm really looking at the very powerful convergences and game changers that we're experiencing in this very, very tight window of time that we are already in right now. So for sure, we are all feeling great intensity in our worlds, in the Earth's energy field right now. And the 3D will continue, just know that the 3D will continue to get much louder. As the scenery collapses in the theatre, it's going to get much louder, much more colourful, much more dramatic. And I would strongly suggest that you just tune out. You tune out of fear and the wild zigzags of the storylines, and you just come back to self and to peace. And I'll enlarge on that as I go through. But the more we feed it with our attention, because it's like the biggest movie in town, the more we feed it, the more at the quantum level we are energizing more of it. And it will continue to be energized for as long as we give it our focus and attention. So strongly suggest, if you want a more peaceful life, that you just let that kind of fade away. You may have an awareness of what's going on in the world, but you just let it fade a little. And people, of course, always ask me, well, what about the wars? What about the horrors? And indeed, they are hideous right now. And our hearts break in looking at those situations. But if we keep just staring at the horror of them without being able to go beyond them in our frequency to create a much higher level of consciousness where such things never exist, and they're inconceivable at that higher level, then we keep going around the hamster wheel. So I've mentioned before, what can we do practically? Can we deliver aid? Well, a whole aid convoy was murdered recently. Can we send money that we are sure will get to the people in need? We can do that if that's possible for us. But what we can all do is come together in meditation, whether it's the ones that I've suggested every day now, every evening, 7 p.m. UK time, adjust to your own time zone, and we come together freely for 15 minutes. I'll put the video describing the guidelines for that underneath this video, and we're literally doing it every night. And of course, you're probably not able to do it every single night, but if you can join 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in a week, there are thousands of people across the world doing this to create this incredible energy of love that is forming really a new template for where we're going with this new consciousness. And so we can all do that in our hundreds, thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands. We can all do that. And as I say, I'll put that video below, and you just join energetically. No tech, no Zoom, no recordings. The timeline, so there's a very clear, loud, dramatic timeline based on fear and lack and, oh my God. And there's also, and that's what the nightly news is about. But there's also a beautiful timeline based on love that you're never going to see on the nightly news, that is super quiet, super loving, very kind, very collaborative, people coming together, hugging, sharing, and really spending their time creating a very beautiful energy. They come together to meditate, to chant, to sing, to share, to grow food together, to have sound baths perhaps, to chant, etc. But it's a very beautiful existence, and there's nothing dramatic about it that you're going to see on the nightly news, never going to be on the nightly news. But it is palpable, and it's growing very rapidly in strength to create this tsunami of love in the world. And what I'm feeling more and more strongly, I've always said that our reality is created from the inside out. I've said that hundreds of times probably. It's created from the inside out. It is an inside job. If we want to see peace in the world, we have to feel peace in ourselves. If we want to see love in the world, we have to feel love in ourselves. It's the only way it works. We can't go out there to fix it. We have to create it from inside of us. And as long as we give away our power to external authorities, people, devices, we are just shedding that potential power. And this really is an incredibly important lifetime, because within one lifetime we have the potential to go from the third dimension to much higher dimensions and very different experiences. So this is what this is all about, really. Because when we come together in meditation, in love and joy and sharing, we are creating essentially a kind of sub-quantum frequency or pre-matter template, or whatever you want to call it. It's physics. It's the physics of energy from which matter is created. Matter, events, experiences emerge from the invisible energy which we are creating all the time. If you're not doing it consciously, you're doing it unconsciously. We're emanating frequency in every moment, whether we know it or not. So let's choose to make it a good frequency and a high frequency. Now, if people are living in fear or lack, they won't see the quiet, loving people. They just won't, because they'll say, well, where is this wonderful world? Where is this new earth? I don't see it anywhere. And in a way, they're quite right, because they won't be able to, because it's on a different frequency. And it is a kind of law of the universe that you can only experience that which you are on the same frequency of, which isn't great English or grammar, but it's how it works. Because you're sending out a resonance, you're sending out a frequency, and the universe gives you a mirror of that in your reality. Everything starts from the inside out. And so everybody has free will in what we're going through, and we have to step aside from judgment, and we have to allow everybody to have that free will to make their own choices. I think that's really, that's so important, because everybody's on a different soul contract, agreement, whatever. And we may be in a place now that we weren't at 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. You know, we may have changed quite significantly. And we've done that through our choice, our free will, our frequency. So this video is simply going to be a kind of an offering, an observation of what I really see unfolding in this incredibly tight window of time, which I kind of spotted last year, because it's such unique astrology, and I've talked about that configuration many, many times. It's incredibly rare and we believe unique astrology in this moment, which is describing a very particular quantum jump for the evolution of humanity. So I'm going to be referring and quoting and crediting people who are way more gifted than me, and how their offerings are feeding into what I'm seeing astrologically. So Indigenous prophecies, obviously, the Hopi, the Maya, the Quero, and others have been talking about this particular period of time for humanity. We know we're at the end of the 12,000-year descending Yuga cycle. The Earth is also moving through the galactic current sheet, which it only does every 12,000 years, give or take 500. I want to credit my very good friend, American astrologer Heather Ensworth, because she has really helped to put Bibu Dev Misra's work. He wrote an incredibly detailed and scholarly work about the yugas and Kali Yuga in particular. And the book is called Yuga Shift. Excellent book. And Heather, has really helped Bibu bring that onto the public stage. And I really recommend you read it. Heather is also an expert on the processional cycle. She's the best there is, in my view. She's really excellent. She's my go-to person for that. So it's very interesting that Bibu Dev Misra, in his book, was talking about March 21st, 2025 being the end of Kali Yuga, the end of the age of darkness. And it's quite remarkable that another wonderful friend, Kelly Kolodny, who has channeled Archangel Raphael for the last 37 years, Archangel Raphael said on that same day, I don't know if Kelly was aware of Bibu Dev Misra's work, but Archangel Raphael said that day, which was the Aries equinox, that humanity began its gestation into what will become the galactic new human that will be birthed on the Capricorn solstice, the 21st of December. And we're going through a series of trimesters right now. We're soon going to have the Libra equinox, and that will be the beginning of this final trimester into what Archangel Raphael was describing as the new galactic being, the new galactic baby. I personally believe very strongly that is the birth of a new consciousness for humanity. And I believe, and I hope I'm not misquoting, that Archangel Raphael has been saying that recently too, that this is potentially the birth, I believe it is the birth of a new consciousness for humanity, which is going to be a jump. It's going to be a quantum leap. It's not going to be just an ABC, a linearity. It's going to be a jump. And Dr. David Clements, in the last conversation we had, not even 2 weeks ago, at the very end of our conversation, he was kind enough to give us some channeling. And again, I'll put the link for that video below so you can refresh your memory. And I'm quoting him word for word here. And he was channeling some very high galactic beings, and they said, the new wave of energy is coming in, the tip of which will reach you at the very beginning of December 2025. Part of the new timelines you have created, meaning humanity, were simply not possible even 10 years ago. And they've talked often about humanity has exceeded all expectations of where we were expected to get to at this time in our history. So the tip of this new wave, meaning the evolutionary wave, will reach us as humanity the very beginning of December 2025. This is a whisper of time away, isn't it? Which is what is linking with Kelly's channeling with Archangel Raphael. In my recent conversation with Nancy Rebecca, and again, I'll put that video below, she was talking about, in her interactions with the blue light beings, this series of galactic waves that she was seeing and the blue beings have shared with her, continuing through the next few months, building like galactic light surges. She talked about November being the burst into blue. This is the galactic preparation zone for a huge galactic surge. And she talks about these energetic surges, these galactic light surges, igniting our consciousness. She talked about December 2025 being the galactic reboot. And January the 11th, she cited in particular as the galactic burst of light. And that's when she was seeing really December, January, this kind of crescendo of these galactic surges of energy and light that are going to jump humanity. So, as well as all the astrology, but I've talked about the astrology so extensively, I'm going to, as I say, put the relevant videos for that below, because the astrology is so specific and so activated for this time. And I've been talking, at least for the last year, maybe 18 months, how, it was I think it was at the end, it was October. Yeah, I think it was even October 2023. I started to notice this unique configuration and how I felt that and I said at the beginning of 2025 in my themes, and I said it with my good friend Kathy Rose in our video, that I felt 2025 would be a huge year of turbulence, endings and beginnings. And then the really kind of big launch for humanity would be sort of in the early months of 2026. So all of this is converging. Whether you're talking about December or January, or if we look across millennia, we are dealing with tiny slivers of time. I recently had a conversation with Anne Tucker, who channels beautiful weekly angel messages, and they said to her very recently that the Earth shift, the major Earth shift they've been talking about for years now, they said would happen. I think their exact wording was within the anniversary. And Anne understood that to mean within the next 12 months, which would take us into next August 26th, but could happen anywhere between now and then. And the Earth shift they've always described as the prelude to this big shift in consciousness for humanity. Now, so I had a very detailed astrological conversation with Anne. I'll put the link for that video below. But for sure, I'm anticipating a lot more seismic activity and solar activity for the rest of this year and into early 2026. We've had some significant earthquakes recently. We had a 7.7, then we had a big 8.8, and just today, between South America and Antarctica, we had a 7.5. These are significant, large earthquakes. Now, amazingly, although they've been very large, in recent times, they've been well away from populated areas. Thank goodness. If they were under a city, a densely populated city, I mean, it would just be devastating. So the recent ones so far have avoided casualties. They've caused potential tsunamis and building shaking, but they haven't actually, to my knowledge, caused any casualties. Now, who can say whether the meditations I've suggested that are happening all over the world, that many other people are doing, have helped to soften the impact of any damage on humanity? Who can say? We can't say. We can't as yet measure that. But I think what we can say is they can only help. They can only help. They may not always help, but so far it seems that they may be helping. I think that's as much as we can say now, not to overclaim. And I also want to talk about something which is buzzing a lot on social media at the moment, which is at the same time as all of these things are happening, of course, we have the arrival of 3I Atlas Comet. And 3 means the third recorded, interstellar is the I, and Atlas, I think, is the name of the software that actually detected it. And so this is coming at us at some speed. It's currently traveling, I understand, at 58 kilometers a second. It will speed up to 68 kilometers a second as it comes to its perihelion, which I believe is late October, but I'll get to that in a moment. And It seems that it was launched in, however, it was launched from beyond our Oort cloud, so way, way beyond our solar system. But it is coming really very close to us, and it will be at its closest point to Earth. I think it's, yes, that last week of October, but it will be closest to Earth during October and November. And amazingly, and nobody's really understanding why, it is aligning pretty much to the ecliptic plane of our whole solar system. And that's remarkable because the previous two interstellar comets have been very inclined to our ecliptic plane. Well, this one isn't. It's very, very kind of parallel to our ecliptic plane. So inevitably, comets bring in new information from the far galaxies. They bring in high intelligence, new ingredients for our evolution, and particularly the further out they are, they often bring very new information for us. But it will definitely affect our entire solar system, our Earth, and humanity, this new information coming in. And it's very prolonged, really, October and November. And it is likely also to provoke more solar activity. We are still at the peak of solar cycle 25. And a really excellent person to follow with this is, if you don't know him already, is Stefan Burns, Stefan with an F. Young guy, very smart, background in seismology and magnetics, very good grasp of astronomy, astrology, and various other modalities. And he pulls all these modalities together. He's also very spiritual. I'll put the link for this video that he did about the AI comet below this video, so you're going to have quite a list to go through. But he does feel, because there's a kind of long plasma tail to it, and we partly know from the brilliant work of Professor Robert Temple, the New Science of Heaven book, which was just groundbreaking, that plasma is a form of consciousness. And therefore, a lot of new forms of consciousness, new aspects of consciousness are going to be delivered via this comet. Inevitably, that's going to affect the consciousness of the planets, the consciousness of our sun, and the consciousness of you and me. This is a really, really powerful next few months. I mean, because, I anticipated right at the beginning of the year it was going to be very volatile in terms of seismic activity and geomagnetics. And boy, is this delivering. But it really feels like we're reaching a crescendo in these we are already in the mush of the chrysalis. We are already in this period of metamorphosis. I might put the Metamorphosis for Humanity video below as well. But what I find very exciting, as well as all of this, is, and I also want to, I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. I mean, Lee Harris has, early this year, I think it was March time, he released his book, The Future Human, because his guides, the Z's, were really downloading exactly what I'm talking about here, this jump in the evolution for humanity. And even people who are not at all familiar with the astrology that I do day to day, like, for instance, Richard Rudd, brilliant mystic poet, originator of the gene keys. I've had several conversations with him on my channel, as many of you know. He talks about this period of time, and it began in his system of gene keys on the 30th of January this year, when in his system Pluto crossed gate 41. Don't ask me what that means, but Richard knows. And he said that activated an amino acid called methionine, and that is linked to DNA modification in a good way. And he said that would be the beginning of a genetic mutation across all species. You can hear him saying that on our recorded conversation. And in the gene keys, and this was channeled, I understand, by Ra, that Ra was working with 17,000-year cycles. Ra said that the emergence of this new human would be in 2027. And Richard, in his probably most famous gene key 55, and that is the gene key of freedom, where he talks about the metamorphosis of the water nymph to the dragonfly, and I've talked about that a great deal. That has already begun, that metamorphosis, which is why I often say we're in the mush of the chrysalis. And in his system, that end of the beginning, let's say, end of the beginning of metamorphosis, that the initial jump into this new form, or in my view, new consciousness, will be by 2027, because also that's when this unique astrological configuration at the end of 27 going into 28 starts to break up. But it is remarkable how many people, even those who are not versed in astrology, are quoting 2025 to 2027 as being a remarkable and unique accelerated period of humanity's evolution. So, of course, humanity's evolution is going to go on and on, on to infinity, let's hope. But this particular period is a period of very accelerated evolution. And it is partly caused by the very high-frequency light codes which are coming in for us now. They're coming in from our sun, they're coming in from the galactic core, and we are really kind of being bombarded in a good way with these incredible light codes, which we are able to embody more and more. But the light codes are activating our DNA as well. And our DNA, it's helping our DNA to remember a time in history when we had more strands that were active. So there's a remembrance coming in here as well as a jump forwards. And humanity is weaving, I believe, it's weaving these light codes, consciously or unconsciously, better if it's conscious, these new light codes with our DNA and with our hearts to produce this new consciousness. There's no leader who's doing this, there's no politician, there's no, yes, there is angelic and galactic support, I believe, but we as humanity are doing it. And we are way ahead of expectations. And it isn't just Dr. David Clement's channeling that has said that. And so that's what is so exciting now. The light codes are also, of course, being embodied in the water, because water is concentrated light. We are largely water. We are liquid crystals. We're imbibing the water. We're drinking the water all the time. And so the water itself, which I really feel along with Veda, is primal. It's foundational in the creation of consciousness and its development. And so all of this is weaving together. And I really felt, and I've mentioned this before as well, that when I was on that recent shamanic retreat in France, all of the 18 of us there, we felt we were, because it was just a kind of magic bubble, we felt that we are, and maybe because we were kind of away from our day-to-day lives, but we felt we had embodied New Earth. We felt that love, that sharing, that joy, that peace, that gratitude, that compassion, that we could all come together and beam out powerfully to the world while we were there from our hearts, but also when we return to our locales, our local areas, and we continue to do that from a higher state, because I believe that we could really help to shift us to a higher state. And, I've referred to that, and I absolutely loved it. So now, where are we? Because everybody asked the question, well, am I in that first wave of new consciousness? Everybody asked that question. I don't know. It's a kind of Google God question. I can't possibly answer that in terms of what percentage or what number, but it doesn't matter. I may not be in the first wave, I might be in the 74th wave, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that humanity is in this process. We're in the mush of the chrysalis, which will emerge finally into the butterfly, with Richard Rudd's analogy, the dragonfly, etc. So whether it happens for you this December, January, or a few months down the road, because it's going to go in waves. I have that very strong sense it's going to continue in waves, this accelerated period over these next 3 years. And indeed, Anne Tucker's angel messengers have said that the first people in the first wave will reach back down and pull people up in the second wave, and they will reach back down and pull people up in the third wave. And so we're toggling between, I don't know if you feel this yourself, I feel that I toggle between 3D reality, very tangible. If I have to pay the gas bill or fix a leaking tap, I'm very, very much in 3D. But if I can meditate or do breath work or have bare feet on the grass or be in nature, be in ancient woodland close to me, I feel I'm in a higher dimension then. I feel for periods of my day, I am most certainly in a higher dimension. And I try and maximize and optimize and milk those. Stare into a flower. Just send the tree love. Even though you've passed that tree 1,000 times, send the tree love. Feel the life force in that tree. The more you can milk those higher dimensions, the more you will see that in your reality. So I feel currently many of us are kind of in this toggle in between. And I'd really suggest to you just create. Imagination is your fertilizer right now. Create the world you want to see. And people say, well, what is that new world? You can tell me, describe it. Well, the tricky thing is, not only are we all in the process of creating it, and I'm not in charge. I mean, we're all doing this, and it's more of a blank canvas than ever before because of this jump we're going through. But also, it's going to be much more abstract. It's going to be less dense. It's going to be more flowing, more fluid, more malleable, more full of light, more full of connection to all living beings, a greater sense of oneness. We're going to be able to see each other's energy field. It'll be impossible to lie. We're going to be able to heal each other. Telepathy will operate much more fully. Much greater psychic sensitivity. All the colours will be lit up. Like somebody's turned the lights up. I certainly feel all of those things will be part of it. But it will be much less tangible than what we've lived in. Absolutely. But we are creating it. You listening to this are as important as I am, as, we all are. But it has to be embodied through us. I really, really feel it's through our physicality, and it's got to come from the inside out in a deeper way than I've ever stated it, in a deeper way than I've ever understood it. Everything is inside of us. We are going to discover that the whole cosmos is inside of us. Our birth chart, the Z's via Lee Harris, and also my good friend Janet Trelaw via Zach aspect of Dwell Cool, they have both said our birth chart is physically etched in our hearts, not just energetically. But the whole cosmos, I think, is within us. And, for those of you listening, if you're not on anything close to this timeline, you are going to think I'm living in La La Land, and that's fine. You can switch off now. That's absolutely fine. Because you are only going to experience things that you are a frequency match to. I've mentioned that earlier in this video. It is the way the universe works. It's a magnetic resonance. And that's what the heart sends out. It's a magnetic resonance, which pulls in the reality you want to experience. That's how this works. And we're going to get much, much better at this. So from my point of view, we're not going anywhere. We're not changing our geography, but we are changing our perception. We have a new lens. As I say, where, if you have a really deep meditation or very strong breath work or wonderful yoga practice, all the colors look lit up. There's a lens shift, a perceptual shift. And we are also going to be shifting from the mind to the heart, because the mind operates in linearity, generally in logic. You could do A, then you could do B, then you could, and it also operates in separation, therefore. It tends to categorize and separate and judge. And we've been super encouraged to operate from our minds, the information age that we've lived through. But a huge, huge part of this shift in consciousness, this birth of a new consciousness, is starting to operate from the heart. And that's where unity consciousness lies. It doesn't separate, it doesn't divide. It doesn't say, I'm right, you're wrong. That's where unity consciousness lies. But it also, the heart has to be in coherence. Because there's so much agitation amongst people right now, so much agitation in the field through so many devices, smart devices, computers, Wi-Fi. There's a lot of agitation, and just the stress of all that's happening in the world, the intensity of all that's happening in the world. And so we have to come back to these simple practices of bare feet on the grass. Drop into your breath. As I say, I'll put the yogic belly breath description below this, and it's just a 10-minute video explaining how the yogic belly breath works, which is so simple. And actually on my website, I've got that video as well. There's a meditation tab on my website for people searching for, how do you join the meditation? Well, there's no tech joining. There's no link, but that is there along with the description of the 15-minute meditation. But also I have a very sweet sea sounds track under the yogic belly breath meditation as well that you might enjoy. So all of those things, being in nature, just tuning in to your heart, dropping into your heart, dropping into your breath, all of these very simple things I talk about. And in a sense, the more we can be still and do those things for free in the now, that's when we're doing it. There's nothing more to do externally. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to study, really. There's just being. There's just dropping into the now, into the stillness. Book more stillness meetings with yourself. Just float, be part of nature. Be part of birdsong. Be part of all of it. And that's when we'll achieve heart coherence. And heart coherence is a kind of physiological symmetry, which is incredible for your health, because all of your cells become much healthier. You expand your heart toroidal field. You infect other people with this state of coherence, and that's when we're all really helping the collective to shift to a better place. And this is essentially what I'm talking about here. It's the physics of energy, but it's also the revolution of love. It's both. It's the physics, but it's also, and how energy works, but it's also the revolution of love and how we start to operate from our hearts. So humanity is a huge part of this. Humanity is the majority of it. It's not all the astrology. It's not all what your current leader is telling you, by a mile. It's us and our energy and our focus and our attention. Where are we going to put that? And everything is now, really. I'm in a bit of a kind of existential crisis with my astrology right now, because astrology is always to do with, well, when is it going to happen? When is the next lunation? When is the next eclipse? People come to us, astrologers, for answering the question, when am I going to move house? When am I going to get that job? And astrology is a language of mathematical probability. but it does operate largely, but not exclusively, in linear time. It also operates organically, and it's based on fractal patterns of time as well. But I won't go down that rabbit hole. But so I don't know what this is going to do to my own personal astrology longer term. But I'm very aware that in order to really be in this higher state, we have to be in the now. That's where our power lies, not fretting about the past, not giving away our worry to the future, leaking power to that which we have no control over. All of your power, thank you, Eckhart Tolle, the power is in the now, the power of now. So what we have to really do, I think, is surrender into these waves of beautiful energy coming onto the earth right now of love and joy and a sense of oneness and elevated consciousness. Just surrender to it, drop into it, be it and feel into it rather than think into it. Take the mind out of it. And surrender to the stillness, surrender to the simplicity. And I do think we're going to have some extreme Earth events for the rest of this year, as I said. I do think we're going to have more seismic activity. It's happening already. I do think we're going to have more, and that's earthquakes and volcanoes. I do think we're going to have more solar activity. There's going to be a lot because the Earth is going through her own rebirth too. So that's going to happen. And if you manage to get to these higher frequencies, I think to a large extent you are bubble wrapped from the worst excesses. Now, clearly that can't be completely true because some wonderful people have been caught up in the floods and the fires and the devastation. But I do think it helps because for sure the opposite is true. If we're in fear, we are going to attract more fearful events. If we're in scarcity and lack, we're going to attract more of those. So I think the opposite is certainly true. So being in a high frequency and in heart coherence will serve us better in that sense as well. And really use whatever works for you. Is it breath work? Is it yoga? Is it candle gazing? Is it being in nature? Is it grounding, bare feet on the grass? Is it sacred music? Whatever takes you to that place very rapidly, do more of that, whatever it is. And it's usually all for free. And, I'm often asked, but how can you not fight against the XYZ? And I've thought about this a lot because I've been a very successful activist in the past in my local area around issues of freedom. And I'm very proud of the work I did with that. And I think part of the reason, and I wasn't on my own, I mean, heavens, there were, lots of us engaged in those fights. But I tried to get out of the fight energy and stand in what was right for nature. Stopping woods being chopped down, stand in what was right for the people. I tried to stand in that place rather than the fight, because the fight energy takes you into more fight. And what you tend to do in the fight, you're operating within the same paradigm that created it and adding energy to it. So that would be my answer to that. If we get into doubt of, I'm not young enough, pretty enough, rich enough, smart enough, whatever, we cancel our cosmic orders. So we just have to stay in that place of pure conviction that we are in this frequency of love that will act as the strongest magnet we can create along with other people. If you can get together with other people, it's much, much better, whether that's in person or online, to magnify the magnetic effect of our meditations. I mean, Lynn Taggart is brilliant at this and in measuring it. When we come together in a group, we magnify the group effort. and we magnify the intentions we set. So, we are in a place of mastery. This lifetime is our mastery lifetime, where we are learning to become masters of the invisible. That's what this is about. And, it's very interesting to me that when I look at the astrology of Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, they are both air signs. They're to do with the invisible. They're not Earth, just tangible. They've moved out of Earth signs. And so, on the one hand, we are dealing with a lot more awareness of the invisible, with Wi-Fi and EMFs and all of those things which are degrading to our biology. And it's interesting that people totally believe that in Wi-Fi, but they tend not to believe in energy, working with energy. So we either are going to be, in a less positive sense, with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini, controlled by technology, Pluto in Aquarius, and we will have more digitized neural networks, Uranus in Gemini, or we will be able to achieve this shift in consciousness, because this unique configuration, astrologically, I've just, as I said, talked about so much, is also about using the pure potentiality of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 of Aries, the very first degree of the zodiac. We can use that same astrology to experience dimensions of reality we never believed existed, to shift us, jump us to a higher level. And I've also talked about this as the blossoming. These 3 years are the blossoming of that seed point of Uranus, Neptune, Pluto coming together in a very exact conjunction in 577 BC, when incredible pioneering thinkers like Buddha and Pythagoras were alive, developing theories of the invisible, of divinity, of consciousness, for really the very first time. Very early. And now we're seeing the blossoming of that seed. So the invisible holds great power, both negatively as degrading energies or very positively. So how are you going to weave these energies? We're at such an important choice point. And I've said this many times before, it's such an important choice point, because it is still possible for people living in fear or lack or scarcity to move to a different timeline in love. And again, no judgment. Everybody has free will. Don't necessarily try to sway somebody, even if it's a loved one. Well, this is my own point of view. They are on their own soul's journey, is my point of view. And be there for them to hold sacred space and light them up with your light. Light them up with your light. That's one of the best things we can do, rather than talking so much. Come from the heart. So it is still possible, I believe. In fact, we've got 8 billion timelines, because everybody has got their own individual timeline. But I think absolutely broadly there are 2 timelines. And yes, for a period of time, I do think there is this bifurcation. And, I've used the analogy many times because it's the best one I can think of, that we're at an airport. Some people have chosen fast track, some slow track. We're all going to get on the unity consciousness plane at the end of the day. All of us are going to move and are moving towards unity consciousness, but we are all on our timeline, our individual timeline of doing that. So it isn't a permanent split. It's a temporary one. And I'm not the only person talking about that split. But be so aware of your choices. There's a lot of discussion about AI. It's absolutely all over the place at the moment on social media, because there's a kind of exponential jump in that being everywhere in our reality. Lots of people are talking about it and having very different views. And all I would say, and you have to use your discernment and make your own choices here, but all I would say is, to me, this is like an echo of Atlantis and what happened to Atlantis at the very end of Atlantis, because they were getting very involved in using technology. And I'm not the expert on Atlantis. Talk to somebody who is. But I just raise a question mark that we, as humanity, are in such a habit of giving away our power to the external. And I would just suggest that our own inner spiritual technology could be making leaps ahead of whatever is currently available externally. Just consider that as a possibility, because I think our own internal spiritual technology is kind of also like the acorn turning into the oak tree, being super activated by these light codes right now. And I'd like to also recommend that you watch a beautiful video below. She doesn't know I'm talking about her. She doesn't even know I watch her work. It's a wonderful QHHT practitioner in America called Alison Coe, double L. And what she does is, and this was a system of deep hypnosis invented by Dolores Cannon, take the client into deep hypnosis and then they start to describe what they're experiencing in those other dimensions. And Alison has done quite a run of these, where recently her clients have talked more and more and more about New Earth and what they're experiencing in that deep hypnosis state about New Earth. And they are beautiful. They are beautiful. And this latest one that just came out a few days ago, that will take you to a different place. But it's very similar to what Alison does is read the transcript of the sessions with the client, and the client has given permission for that. But they're word for word, and they're just beautiful. So if you're asking the question, okay, so what is this New Earth going to look like? That video can give you, and you can explore the rest of Alison's videos. They can give you some real inspiration of what these higher dimensions look like, what is possible for us, entirely possible for us to move to, I believe, in this lifetime. And that's really exciting. What is also very exciting is repeatedly, when Alison has asked the question about the timing of, when did you client shift into these higher dimensions? What was happening? Repeatedly, she is getting the same timing played back. Now, the tricky thing is, of course, there's no linear time in the spirit world, all those higher dimensions where the client is experiencing, but it's jolly interesting, given all I've been saying. It's jolly interesting. So, although Alison also says in the video, take the time with a pinch of salt, that time, that linear time, is popping up very frequently in her videos, the transcripts of the QHHT sessions with her clients. It's beautiful. I could listen to that several times over. So really recommend that you listen to that. I'll put that video below, so I'm going to have a long list of videos I'm recommending to you. So really feel inspired with becoming a master of the invisible. Living in the love revolution. That is achievable for us in this lifetime. That's meant to be achievable for us in this lifetime. That time capsule within us is being activated by the light. And if you're not, on this timeline, you're going to think I'm just a crazy lady. And that's fine too. We all have our own journey to follow. But I hope that's helped. I've sort of tried to enlarge on some of the things I've been saying recently to give you a kind of, from my point of view, an overview of where we're at. But I do find it fascinating that even people who know nothing about astrology are talking about this same accelerated window of time for our evolutionary leap. And that's really exciting. Okay, God bless. I hope that's helped you, and I'll be back again very soon with an update about the total lunar eclipse coming up in Pisces very soon in September. Bye for now.